2007. David Beckham, 31 years old, playing for Real Madrid. Probably at that stage, not one of the best footballers in the world, probably past his peak, but still world class and still in the England fold, so playing for the national team. And probably one of the most high profile, if not the most high profile footballer in the world. Decides to move to the footballing abyss that is America to go and play for LA Galaxy. 70% pay cut. Goes there for 5 years. From a sporting perspective, makes absolutely no sense. But from a business perspective, it was a good move, Rich. And you're going to tell us why.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everybody, do you remember when it happened? I certainly do. Everyone was just like, the MLS, like you say, is, I don't know, it's the kind of place where 40-year-old Brazilians used to go.
MLS, for anyone not too sure, is Major League Soccer, which is the American Professional Football League. Nowhere near now even the quality of Europe. In 2007, a total joke, presumably.
Oh, yeah. Probably sub-conference level.
Like going to watch Peterborough United, something like that.
Yeah, and I think the strange thing about this was that he was still at his height, right? He was playing for Real Madrid. He was on a huge salary out there, still playing for England, I believe. So it didn't really make much sense. But so I started digging into it after all of the news about Messi, and the kind of the contract that Messi's got. And I thought, okay, well, let's just have a look at Beckham's journey, Beckham's decisions of what he was actually trying to do. So 2007, like you say, he was doing really, really well at Real Madrid. Big salary. I think he was on over 20 million a year at the time. And the MLS is a salary cap. In fact, all US sports have a salary cap. It's where the Brits try and educate a few people if anyone's listening in America. So there's a salary cap so that it creates an even playing field across all of the sports. And you're allowed a couple of spike players that go to a certain level. But there was a 2 million a year salary cap. Now, bearing in mind, Beckham's on 20. So you're thinking, how does this even work? How can this potentially work? Well, they gave him a salary of 6.5 mil. So still 70% lower than what he was on. How they got around that was that he was paid his salary cap from the club, and then the owners, some way, paid him the remainder themselves. So he wasn't actually paid for by LA Galaxy. He was paid for in some other way, and there'll be some other probably image, rights, likeness deal that's cooking there. So he got a 6.5 million salary, but then you're thinking, still 70% lower, 31 years old, still should be going. He negotiated a percentage of all club revenue. We're talking tickets, we're talking merchandise, sponsorships, anything else to do with that, to do with LA Galaxy, essentially to become, the face of it. And if he was going to become the face of it and be this person that's going to elevate this club and potentially even the whole of the MLS, he wanted a percentage of the club revenue. Sounds a little bit like old Jordan, doesn't it, at Nike? I'm sure he's probably learned from that kind of thing. So over those 5 years, have a guess at what you think his earnings were over 5 years for that club revenue. Bearing in mind it's 2007. Bearing in mind it's still low. There's only 15,000 fans on average go to these MLS games. And he came from the Bernabeu where it was like 80,000 a game. So on top of his 6.5 years salary, 6.5 million salary, what do you think he earned over 5 years as a percentage of club revenue? Don't go too high because this is a small league at the time.
I mean, if it's just ticket sales, shirt sales, things that the club can sponsorship, do we know what the percentage was?
No, but it was very low, apparently.
I can't believe that's more than a few $1 million a year.
18 he made.
Okay, so I'm in the ballpark.
Yeah, you're in the ballpark. So 6.5 a year, 2 paid salary cap. The rest via other ways from the owners, and then 18 million. So bear in mind he's coming towards the end of his career, so he's not going to be on 20 million on his next contract at Real. He's going to step down. So he's thinking, okay, well, I'm going to make that, and I'm going to make a predicted let's say 15 million. So he knows that he's getting looked after. But his genius move, and I don't think the MLS when they did this deal thought that it was actually a bad deal. He agreed to be able to buy a franchise and take up an option within a period of time for $25 million. Now, we've all seen this kind of circulating around with the Messi stuff. Now, you might think, crikey, that's not a lot of money to buy a team, because how franchises work in the States is that you can only get a certain number in, and then obviously once you're in, there's revenue generated from the league. It's a little bit like the Premier League in that. So if you get into the Premier League, you're going to make some money. Toronto, in 2007, only paid $10 million. So the MLS are thinking, it's 25 mil, that's fine. But obviously, across that period of time, the massive impact that he had and all of his connections that came over to the MLS, times change. The average value of an MLS team in 2022 was $582 million. And he and his consortium bought one for.
And that was quite recent. They bought. Was it one in Miami, right?
Well, no. So yes, he bought it. I think he bought the first season. I think he activated it in like 2015, 2016, because their first season was 17, 18, I think. So they've been getting going, or maybe it was 19. They started building their stadium then, and they've really struggled. I mean, they really struggled until. They're not going to be struggling anymore. They're going to be a force.
And so,
to be reckoned
for anyone,
with,
Lionel Messi
with
joined Beckham's team. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
So Beckham got that team for like $25 million, and it's now worth. We think that might be worth hundreds of millions.
They have suggested that with Messi's impact, it will be worth over $1 billion in a year. And you could bet your bottom dollar, considering there's a few partners in there, that Beckham's probably got 20-30% of that.
Did they launch that team? So it was the rights to launch one, or did he buy one that already existed?
Yeah, I actually don't know, Doug. I actually don't know. They normally don't buy a team in the MLS. They normally buy a football club and then it gets added to the MLS, but there's only a certain number of people that can do it. Real Salt Lake were one of the ones that came recently. They paid an absolute fortune. Like hundreds of millions.
So he sort of had a right to
because it's so
put a team in it, basically, is what he had. For 25 million, you can have a team that's in that league. And now the league's more valuable.
And it's like, so a team will, the club's more valuable. Yeah. And it's because there'll be some teams that roll out, and they'll roll out because either they've not managed to do it, or they don't want to do it, or something's happened financially. It happens in all of American sports, really, that these teams roll out, and that creates a space. And I'm sure that's what triggered it. So when a space came through, he said, "Right, Miami. Let's think about Miami. It is a hell of a destination in the States. There's no real kind of sporting football sport down there. So there's a captive audience inside of Miami. All football players in their twilight of their career, they're going to want to go and hang out in Miami." So that, it's the lure. It's not like you're saying no ill feeling towards this, but if you're in Des Moines, Iowa, Messi ain't going to Des Moines. He might go to Miami, but he ain't going to Des Moines. So it's a super, super smart move. Just going back to his career, just when he was in that 5 years, he made, I don't know, north of 50 million from his salary. He also managed to buy the club for 25 million, or get a club set in for 25 million. And then from Armani and Burger King and everybody else, he made $225 million in sponsorship. So his move to the States, when he went to it, young enough, still super, super high profile, obviously being the completely superb businessman that he is, he's probably going to end up getting nearly $1 billion out of that US experience from them to now.
There's a couple of things that I think are really interesting from this, which is, number one is just use leverage properly, hasn't he? So his leverage as a footballer at 31, not worth much. Still good, but he's 2-3 years away from oblivion, and he's one bad tackle away from the end of his career. But what he has got is a brand. And so by leveraging that in a market, in this brand new market, he's been able to make, thousands X what he could have made from just being a footballer. It's a little bit like Conor McGregor launching that, what was it, like a whiskey brand or something. Getting back in the old MMA ring or whatever they call it. Probably not as much value. He's waning. His prime years have gone. As a brand though, let's leverage it. The other thing that's interesting, I used to go to a workspace in where was it? It was in central London, and it was like one of those places where you rent a boardroom, and like it would be like rented out all day by different companies. I remember going in there once, and they'd left out on the table all of these like financial reports. So had a look at these, and it was one of Victoria Beckham, which is David Beckham's wife. For anyone that doesn't know, one of her companies. It was one of her fashion companies, and I won't disclose any of the details here, but it was ridiculous revenue. Looked to me, I don't know anything about the fashion industry, looked like ridiculous margins. And the final thing is the people walking out of that meeting before us looked like absolute killers. And I think the thing that the Beckhams have done well is they've recognised you just bring on absolute killers and stuff's going to get done. Like, did Beckham come up with this idea for the MLS? Almost certainly no. Did Beckham have the nous to at least find someone that could find someone that could find someone that could come up with some good ideas? Same for him, same for Victoria Beckham. So they can just focus on going to the Miami Grand Prix, building brand, and they can have just these monsters in the background that are just sniffing out all of the cash, which I love.
I mean, the brand piece is an exceptional one, because that's not easy either. You know, they have no doubt this kind of construct of financial deal is not straightforward, and there's no way Beckham's been trained for that. Right? He will think, I would love to be able to buy this team, and he may think I'd be able to do that and I can add value. But constructing a deal as complex as that, you know, like you say, it's got those killers around it. But they were both superb since the 90s at building brand. I mean, you think about what the Kardashians have done and how they've built careers off the back of that and billion-dollar businesses. It's a very similar play. You know, I'd like to think that Beckhams have done it in a way that I would prefer. But it's incredible what you can do with great people around you when you're very good at what you do as well, I think. But amazing story though, Doug? I think it's great.
I love it.
Love it.
Okay. That's a wrap for today. Love it, Rich.
Thank you very much, Doug. See you soon, buddy. Bye-bye.